Welcome. My name is Emily Shivers, and I'm the Grants and Public Programs Manager for the Boise City Department of Arts and History. And you are joining us for our Catalyst Grant Pilot Program Information Session. And we're going to be focusing on round 4 today. So all of the information that you're going to hear will relate to round 4 as far as dates. I will say this is the final round of the Catalyst Grant Program, so the last opportunity to apply for this particular grant program from our department. So make sure that you listen. Please feel free to use the Q&A if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to review and answer those at the end of the presentation. I might check it throughout as well, so if anything comes up, please feel free to write those in as we go. I do want to start by first saying that I'd like to acknowledge the ancestral, cultural, traditional, and unceded territories of the Shoshone, Bannock, and Northern Paiute people from where I am sitting today. And I also just want to say thank you to those who are attending live, but also this is being recorded and will be posted to our website, which is boiseartsandhistory.org. So you can watch it, share it with friends at a later date, anytime throughout the process. If you want to revisit any of the information as you're going through the application, please feel free to visit this again. It'll also be on our YouTube page. So make sure to refer to it if needed. As I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the PowerPoint presentation, but please feel free to use the Q&A if anything comes up. So already introduced myself, but as a reminder, my name is Emily Shivers, and I am offering office hours on Wednesdays as well as a few Thursdays between 9 and 12 p.m. There is a way to sign up for those. There's a link on our website. I'll show you where to navigate to that so you can sign up for those if you're interested in meeting with me individually or need more clarification on anything that we cover here today, or just want to talk with me about something that you're interested in applying for. Please feel free to utilize those office hours. I also have my phone and email address listed here. Happy to talk anytime, even if it's just a phone call. If you have a quick question, don't feel like you need to sit in office hours, but just want to get those answered, I'm happy to call over phone or email. Either works. Our agenda today will be to briefly just go over what the Catalyst Grant Program is, talk a little bit about its what it covers, what it's for. We'll talk about criteria, things that we'll be looking for, and the panelists will be scoring on. We'll also cover types of programs that have typically been funded, that not an exhaustive list, just some things that maybe to spark an idea or to show that maybe something you're already thinking about might align with one of those things that's been funded in the past. We'll go through some application basics. I'll talk about some suggestions when thinking for you to think about while applying. And then we'll also go through and answer questions at the end. So please feel free to use that Q&A function, and I will review those and answer those questions if I can at the very end. Go ahead and diving in. All right, so just to start, a little bit about the Catalyst Grant Program is really intended to support small-scale and mid-sized arts, history, and cultural activities, such as public programs, events, projects, exhibitions, and tours throughout the year. Catalyst was chosen as the name because the program was meant to allow applicants to apply at a higher frequency. There's more opportunities to apply. And it also is meant to kind of spark action in the community. And so the goal was to sort of be a catalyst for emerging or even small-sized arts organizations, arts, history, and cultural organizations. The program has $40,000 available in funding. We are now in the final round, which is round 4. So there's $10,000 available in each round. So in round 4, there's $10,000 available. And each award is a standard award size of $2,000. Applications are going to be accepted, and we're in round 4. And so we're in that final August timeframe. So the final deadline for round 4 is August 2nd, and I'll talk about that timeline in just a second. And then finally, we award up to 5 projects per round. We are in the final round, and so we will be hopefully have enough applicants to actually fully fund the rest of that $40,000. So far, we have had more applications than funding available. And so we've been able to award that full amount each round. And so that bullet point doesn't necessarily apply because we haven't had any unexpended funds yet. If for some reason this round we didn't spend those funds, we would probably find a way to do that. So, and finally, activities must be completed with final reports submitted by September 30th. I will say for round 4, we did provide a little bit of wiggle room, understanding that we're coming really close to that September 30th deadline, knowing that applicants will be notified by August 23rd. That gives about a month for something to happen. So we gave a little wiggle room with the final reports being due October 15th. So please know that round 4 has a little extra time compared to the other 3 rounds. So you can see the timeline here for round 4. The application opened on Monday, July 1st. We'll close on August 2nd, which is Friday. And then applicants will be notified by August 23rd. And then as a reminder, just that October 15th date, we will need all the final reports completed as well as all the funding spent for that program. So to talk a little bit about program eligibility, proposals, it's a projects and programs grant. So all these proposals need to have the following in order to be eligible to apply. They must be completed by an individual or as a representative of an organization, or it could be a nonprofit or a nonprofit friends group associated with a government agency. It has to directly benefit those residents living within Boise city limits. It has to meet Americans with Disability Act or ADA requirements. It needs to comply with the Department of Arts and History's Equal Opportunity Statement, which you can read here, says that the Boise City Department of Arts and History does not discriminate in its programs and activities on the basis of race, religion, national origin, sex, age, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability. And then finally, this is sort of new for our grants program, but we do require that you include the approved budget template. Fill it out with obviously your information, but please use that template. If you do not use the template, you will not be eligible to move forward and be reviewed by the panel. So we really require that you use that template, and I'm going to go through that and hopefully answer any questions that you might have about the template right now. So this is what the template looks like. There's 2 parts. The top portion is the expenses portion. And so this will help you kind of think about the costs associated with your project or program, including cash expenses and in-kind and volunteer. So when we say cash expenses, those are things that you have to pay for directly versus in-kind and volunteer, which would be expenses that you would maybe normally pay for, but are instead being donated or discounted, which would include volunteer hours. So if you have someone volunteering their time to support your project or program, we ask that you do include that in your expense total under that within that column, in-kind/volunteer. We even give you an estimate of what the standard volunteer rate would be according to the independent sector, which is $31.80 an hour. So feel free to use that number when you're calculating volunteer expenses in that in-kind and volunteer row. Another example might be if a venue potentially donated the space to you, you could count that, the amount of what that venue would have cost in the in-kind or volunteer column. Cash expenses are going to be things that you're paying for. That might be the time, the paying someone to do a task as a part of the project, could be for materials that are a part of the project or program. So please include all of that in the expenses under cash expense column. And I will say you'll see under the item description row, there's headings already placed in there for you, and we just ask that you don't change those headings. There are some that are, say, other expenses. 1, you could add whatever the amount is in there that you don't feel like for an item that's maybe not represented by one of the headings above. And then in the explanation column, we just ask that you include what that cost is associated with. So please don't change the headings in the item description. The reason for that is this does have a formula built into it. And so when you start changing columns or rows, it might disturb the formula. So we just ask that you keep it as is, but enter the numbers. And then again, I'm here to answer any questions that you have. So if you're struggling with filling out the budget or feel like something doesn't make sense, please feel free to reach out to me. Give me a phone call, shoot me an email. I'm happy to discuss and hopefully help answer whatever questions that you have. All right, and then the next portion of that budget template has income. So you'll notice that there's a few different columns here. Similarly, the item description. This includes things like admission if you have a ticket cost associated with your project or program, corporate contributions or sponsorships. You might include some of that income. And there's a secured and expected column. So secured would be things that you have confirmed, that are confirmed funds that will be coming in. And then expected are funds that are requested. Potentially you've applied for a grant and you're waiting to hear back, but you think you might get that grant. Or for instance, it could be expected but not yet secured. So maybe a sponsorship that you might be anticipating and so on. Our grant program is represented in that row 16 that you see there. So the standard award of $2,000 is already included in the template for you. And just something to note is at the bottom of each of these, you'll see total project income, as well as on the other page, it said total project expense. Those numbers need to match. Basically, what we want to see is that your income, whatever you're bringing into your event, matches whatever the expenses are to host that said event. And this will automatically calculate that for you. And if those two numbers match, your income total and your expense total match, it will turn green. If they do not match, it will turn red. So we ask that those two numbers match, which ensures that whatever income you need to make sure that that project or program happens, you have the funds needed to pay for those expenses. So again, let me know if you have questions about the budget template and I'd be happy to work with you on that. We're going to go now into the criteria for the Catalyst Grant Program. So we are our panelists made up of community members who have expertise in arts, history, cultural fields. We'll be looking and scoring applications and proposals based off of the following criteria: quality, community benefit, alignment with the City of Boise and Arts and History Department mission, accessibility, and then management. And I'm going to go through and provide a little more detail on each of these criteria. So when we say quality for this grant program, we're looking for a really clear description of the project, including its artistic, historic, and cultural components. And we also really want to see how the funding from this grant program will be used. So please include a sentence or a few sentences that relate to that. We also want to know the who behind your project. So biographies that describe the background, experience or training of people included in your application, who will be responsible for being that cultural expertise or expertise in some way. And so there's a lot of ways that you can become an expert in something. It's not always formal education, though that could be one way, whether it's school, college, a certification program. Also, it could be passed down within a community or cultural group. It could be a job, apprenticeship, or internship program that someone did to become an expert. It can be non-traditional, or it can be a combination of many ways. So it doesn't always have to be a PhD to make you an expert in a field or an area. So please just make sure that you're clearly providing the biography and the description so that the panel can really understand who's involved and why they're qualified to do so. For community benefit, we're really looking for how your proposal will benefit Boise City residents and contribute to our cultural community. So we want to know why your project is meaningful, meaning what drives the project and why is it important for Boise residents. And then also who is the intended audience? And we want to know who it is, but also how you plan to reach that audience to make sure that the project is successful. And one thing with community benefit that I always like to note, not only with applicants, but also with our panelists, is that a project can have a small or very um, intended audience that they want to reach, but it could still have community benefit. So even if it's not a giant 300-person event, it's a more targeted like workshop or educational class or something that is still has could still have community benefit. And so please keep that in mind as you're thinking of projects and programs that you'd like to apply for this grant for. We also asked that it align with the City of Boise and the Arts and History Department mission. So City of Boise's mission is really and vision is to bring people together to build positive relationships that help create a city for everyone. And then for our department, we really want to see that our mission is to cultivate a distinct sense of place, which reflects Boise's rich past, diverse communities, and unique natural setting. So we just want to see how you feel your project or program aligns with each of those. And we hope that you can easily find a place within those because I think they're very broad, but in the nicest way to make sure that everyone feels included and is represented within our city and within our arts, history, and cultural community. So that's one of the criteria, and let me know if you have questions on that one. It's actually a newer criteria for us at the department, so please let me know if I can help. With accessibility, obviously accessibility can mean many things, but within this grant program, we're really looking at affordability, which free or low cost experiences, $20 or less per person, are the most appropriate for this grant program. Or if there's scholarships or financial aid available to bring down ticket costs if they do exceed that amount, we're looking for, again, affordability and finding ways for it to be accessible for people who are maybe unable to pay a certain ticket price. Also, we're looking at inclusivity. So does it offer accommodations or services related to hearing, vision, physical accessibility, language translation, scholarship, financial aid? So is it trying to be inclusive and provide opportunity for many types of people to participate in that project or program? And then management, this criteria is really looking at who are the people responsible for the project and what are their related skills. It's also looking for planning and logistics details like licenses or approvals if they're needed. Has there been a venue secured? Has there been a timeline thought out? And have you thought about evaluation, how you'll evaluate success for your project or program? And then this is also where the balanced budget comes in, as well as providing enough detail within your budget. There's that explanation column is truly where you can provide an explanation of where the numbers that you include in your budget came from. So we ask that you provide a good amount of detail so that someone could read the budget and really understand your program and where money is going and kind of why. And then finally, I'll just talk about some special considerations that we make for this grant program. So we're really looking at first-time applicants. So that'll be something that panelists will be looking for. They might also look for outcomes related to past year's arts and history grant awards. So um, thankfully, we haven't had this happen, but if there were any issues with someone completing the requirements for their grant in the past and they did not do that, that could impact their future opportunities for receiving funding for a grant. Also, applicants that attend an in-person, virtual, or recorded information session will also, or consult with me, whether it be office hours, email, phone, will also be a special consideration. So if you're watching this here with me now, that is meeting that requirement already, or meeting that consideration, I should say. All right, we're gonna jump into types of projects. So again, this list is not exhaustive in any way, just some examples to consider. So types of projects include, but are not limited to, could be performing arts, whether it be dance or vocal performances, concerts, all of that under that umbrella of performing arts. Could be visual arts. We've had people get funded to put together, an artist put together a exhibition of their work, and it helped funded the materials to create the visual art as well as the exhibition. Collaborations are another thing that we consider. So lots of cultural organizations coming together to put on some kind of event, show, project, or program. Initiatives from cultural groups. So we've had grant funded projects or programs in the past. One was a cumbia festival that was put together just this past June, and it included lots of different cultural pieces like dances from an Aztec dance group, um, dances from Ballet Folklorico, lots of things brought together in one event. So we love seeing those kinds of events and projects come through. Also, historical or preservation work. We've had exhibits as well as research, literary based, community cultural events, educational programs and workshops, as well as I kind of mentioned earlier, exhibits. So these are not at all the end to what could be you could apply for it. These are just, again, some examples to give ideas but let me know if you have an idea for a project or and you want to get some feedback on whether or not you should apply or if it fits within the criteria or the parameters, please let me know. All right, so we're going to jump into application basics, and I will just start by saying we use a software that's called Zoom Grants for our applications, and all of the management of the grant, if you were to be funded, it all goes through the Zoom Grants platform. And Zoom Grants is pretty easy to access. It's just zoomgrants.com. You can also access the application through our website, and I'm going to show you how to navigate there at the end of this presentation. But Zoom Grants is pretty easy to use, but if you do have any issues, they have a really great tutorial and Zoom Grants University is what they call it page to learn how to do various things. They also have a help and FAQs page, and ultimately, sometimes I send people to just email them at questions@zoomgrants.com, and they're very responsive and get back pretty quickly. So if there are any issues as you're trying to work on your application, any technical difficulties, please feel free to reach out to Zoom Grants, and all of this information is also listed on our website to reach out to them as well. I will just give a quick kind of note that I cannot access any personal account information on the applicant side. So if you're having issues with maybe a password not working or you need to update an email address, that will have to go directly through Zoom Grants. But again, if you just reach out to questions@zoomgrants.com, they are very responsive and quick to respond to your needs. So that's a great way to go, unfortunately. And if you have questions, you can come to me first and I can help direct you to where you need to go. So for Zoom Grants, if you're a first-time applicant, you will need to create an account through Zoom Grants. If you've applied to a program with us before, you can use the account that you've already set up. Especially for an organization, if you have an existing account, we really encourage you to use that existing account. If you have questions on whether you have one or not, again, that's probably best to go directly through Zoom Grants, but you can come to me first and I can see if you've applied before to one of our programs. And then it will ask you several application questions. How it's sort of set up is there's a question and then a text box. So my recommendation is to start your application questions outside of Zoom Grants, maybe on a Word document or in Google, if you use Google, on a Google document, and then copy and paste into the text box when you're ready. Zoom Grants can be a little finicky when it comes to formatting, and so you might have some issues if your formatting isn't absolutely perfect. So let me know if you have any complications with that, and I can help provide some guidance. We always ask that you remove any formatting before you submit it or copy and paste it into the text box. And that will hopefully allow you to then submit when you're ready. So the questions are in there. Again, there's going to be a place where you can upload a budget. Again, we do require that you use our budget template with your numbers included on it. And then finally, any other attachments are completely optional. So if you want to add resumes, bios, maybe an example, if you're, for instance, an artist and want to include an example of a piece that you've created or work that you've done in the past, you're more than welcome to include those attachments. They are not a requirement. But if you feel like there's an attachment that helps provide context or clarity to your application, please feel free to include that, but again, not required. And always, if you need any extra assistance, I'm sure you've heard me say it many times already, but please let me know as soon as possible, especially if you need any accommodations such as translation, interpretation, physical accommodations. Please let me know, and I will be happy to take the steps necessary to get you those. Right. So if you are awarded, there are a few things that are required. So you will be required to sign an agreement, so a City of Boise agreement, which is a contract between you and the city, saying that you will complete the project that you have been approved to get funding to complete. You're also required to submit a W-9, and something I always make sure to note is for individuals that might be applying for this grant program. That is a tax document, and there may be tax implications for an individual. So please reach out to an accountant or whoever you trust in your world to manage your finances to ask any questions related to that. But do note that it is a W-9 will be required in order to receive funding as an individual. And then you'll be asked to submit an invoice through Zoom Grants. And I have some really hopefully easy to understand how-to documents that I've created with screenshots of every step of the process of how to use Zoom Grants, how to sign the agreement, send the W-9, generate and send an invoice. So hopefully it's pretty easy to do if you were to be funded. And then finally, we do award 100% of the funding upfront. So once you're approved and you receive that notification letter, you can start the process, and we will send that $2,000 to you after we receive the invoice and the W-9. And then once you complete the project, you will be required to submit a final report saying a little bit about how the project went, numbers, audience, all of those kinds of things. And then that final report needs to be submitted by that final date for round 4, October 15th. I will say that the final report does require 5 photos to be uploaded with it. So something I always want to make sure to mention really early in the process is, they don't need to be professional photos. We do appreciate the professional photo and having a photographer on site, but understand if it needs to be someone taking photos themselves. But we do require those 5 photos uploaded alongside that final report. All right, so we're gonna dive into just some suggestions, tips, and tricks for the application. So some suggestions for application questions. Always review the guidelines and really read the criteria really carefully, and make sure that you really understand what is needed and expected from the grant program. We ask that you answer questions clear and concisely. We recommend a maximum word count of 500 words for each of your questions. So some people in the past have asked me, well, how long does it really need to be? I would say make sure that you completely and clearly answer the question. But please don't feel like you need to add in any additional information outside of what is asked within that question. So really clear, concise, and make sure that you're addressing all parts of the question that is asked. And again, hitting things that are noted in the criteria within your answers. Connect the dots throughout. So make sure that the narrative, there's sort of a narrative list throughout your application. And it's okay if you repeat things in multiple places, that there's no points taken off for repeating information. So please feel free to repeat, especially if it makes sense to say something in multiple places to answer the questions. It's always great to also state what will happen. It shows a level of confidence in the project versus saying that something might, maybe, or could. So we always um, encourage that sense of confidence in your writing when it comes to writing for grants. And then some suggestions for the applications for this program. Unfortunately, this is your last opportunity to apply for the Catalyst Grant Program. This is round 4 of 4 rounds. So please apply. And unfortunately, with the other rounds, there was the opportunity to apply again. But for this one, this is the only opportunity. But we highly encourage you to apply if you're interested. And instead of, obviously for this, we mentioned that you might get feedback that you could include again. We will be still providing feedback. Our panel always provides feedback to help provide context for the decision, as well as to hopefully help inform you in your grant writing in the future. So again, just a quick reminder, individuals or small groups, you will have to fill out a W-9 in order to receive the funding if you are awarded, so keep that in mind. You can also include in-kind values in your budget, as we mentioned. So we actually highly encourage the use of the in-kind. So if you know that there's going to be a ton of volunteer hours dedicated to your project, please calculate those and include that. That is a part of the overall total of time invested, and we want to make sure that that is represented in your budget, even if it's volunteer or whether it's cash. And then a recommendation is if you are planning to partner or collaborate with an organization, please make sure to have that conversation and have that partnership or collaboration confirmed prior to applying for the grant program. Because it just, again, thinking about confidence in your project or program, if you have that partnership already set up and solidified, it adds to that confidence of our panel in that you've done the work necessary to make sure that your project or program is successful. And then I have mentioned it already, but just last reminder that I am always happy to provide any feedback. I'm happy to answer questions, whether it be in office hours, over email, phone number, or a phone call. This info session, thank you for watching it, and please feel free to share it with others. Maybe there's other people you're within your project or program that might be helpful for them to see this. Please feel free to share it. And then I'm also happy to read applications as well as as well as budgets prior to the grant deadline. I just ask that you give me at least a week prior to that deadline so that I have time to read the application, provide you feedback, and then you have time to incorporate that feedback into your application. So it is first come, first serve. Let me know if that's something that you'd be interested in. I just need that week in advance of August 2nd. And then if you get the grant, we just ask that you follow the instructions that will be provided. Again, signing the agreement, the City of Boise agreement, submitting a W-9, filling out the invoice. There'll also be some other instructions related to brand and using the city's logo within your marketing materials that we'll be sending out if you are awarded funding. So just we ask that you follow those instructions. And we ask that you continually look back and refer to your application to make sure that you're sticking closely within that proposal or whatever was accepted by the committee and the review panel, and make sure that you're staying in line with that project proposal. We do understand that sometimes changes or things happen, things come up, plans change. So if anything happens that really takes a left turn from the original scope of the project, please reach out to me immediately and I will help you walk through the process of what comes next. But just, it's really about communication and just letting me know what's happening. And then uh, again, don't forget to arrange for photographs. I'm the first person to forget I'm the first person to plan a program and then forget to take photographs of it. So I am also guilty of that, and I encourage you to think about that. If you are funded early on, who's going to take photographs? Maybe it's hiring a photographer, a professional photographer, or someone on your staff or a friend, whoever it may be, but just make sure that you arrange for that early in the process, that you can include those 5 photographs with your final report. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so, so much for being here, whether you're live or if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube or from our website. This is recorded, so um, I I thank you for your time and effort and all of the work that you're doing in the community. And thank you so much for considering this program. Also, feel free, as I mentioned, to share this with others if they might be interested. I am going to quickly stop sharing my screen because I do want to show you how to navigate to our website and find all the information that I just shared with you verbally. So from our website, if you scroll down to grant opportunities, and you scroll down, it will automatically take you to the Catalyst Grant Program. You'll see the quick links on the page, which take you to guidelines, the application, eligibility timeline. I mentioned office hours, info session. If you click there, it will take you to how to sign up for those. And then at the very bottom, the templates. So if you need access to the budget template, you can also find it through Zoom Grants, but you can also download it from our webpage. And then it also includes my contact information. So please feel free to reach out if any questions come up.